Hello folks, KTChamberlain here. Today's video is going to be the first in a series of what if videos for Steven Universe. Today's what if is one that happens to have a lot of consequences in the long run. What if Steven didn't free Lapis from the mirror in Mirror Gem? To give you some context, in this episode Mirror Gem, Steven asks Pearl to teach him, and from her gemstone she summons a mirror with a cracked gemstone to show him important moments in gem history. But it doesn't cooperate with her. Being too lazy to simply teach Steven this herself, she just cuts her losses and lets Steven have it, where he discovers that it's like a person, much to the shock of the crystal gems. Garnet tries to take the mirror back, but Steven refuses, and on the beach he removes the gem, which forms and introduces us to Lapis Lazuli. After a skirmish with her water-based abilities, she gets healed by Steven and returns to Homeworld, where she later warns Steven that Homeworld is coming for them, is dragged back, fuses into Malachite, later is freed from that fusion, and becomes one of the crystal gems. So that being said, what if Steven didn't free Lapis from the mirror? What if Pearl simply took back the mirror and taught Steven what she should have done in the first place, especially since she loves to teach him what she knows? Let's play this scenario out as best as we possibly can based on the evidence provided in the show. Pearl summons the mirror but finds out it doesn't work. Okay, fine. She shrugs and puts it back in her gem and goes on teaching Steven stuff about gems. As to what extent, it'd be unclear because Pearl and the other crystal gems have kept a lot of secrets from Steven, especially at this time in Season 1. With Lapis still in the mirror, who knows how long it'd be before Pearl finally admitted that the monsters that they've been fighting all season were once just like them. With Lapis still in the mirror, Greg wouldn't have broken his leg. Although on the one hand, this would have spared us the BS cliche he pulled in House Guest, and Steven wouldn't have temporarily lost his healing spit when he did. However, on the other hand, Steven summoning his shield like he did in Ocean Gem would not have happened, meaning him achieving that feat would have been pushed back till at least the next encounter with a gem monster or a homeworld gem, whichever came first, but it probably would have been a considerable amount of episodes, so much so that the fans would have grown more impatient to see his shield summoned. Moreover, without Lapis motivating him to summon his shield at will like an Ocean Gem, it probably wouldn't have prepared him for summoning the big shield that saved him and the gems from being spirit gunned. Then again, there is a way to compensate for that in this scenario, but we'll get to that. This is now a good time to point out that Peridot would still have come to Earth in this scenario, because her assignment was regarding the cluster, and what kept confounding that were the crystal gems. After seeing her first appearance, they do up their efforts in helping Steven discover his gem-based abilities like fusion and so forth. So in this scenario, shield summoning would have been top of the list if Steven hadn't had prior experience summoning that in battle like what we saw in Ocean Gem. Without a freed Lapis, she wouldn't have been able to warn Steven about Peridot's return with Jasper in tow. Now, in this scenario, it'd be likely that Steven would still be able to summon his shield at will before Peridot and Jasper landed. I mean, he is the type of person that can pull a miracle out of his gem. Without Lapis's warning, the gems would likely be caught off guard. They had days to prepare for it, and their attempts didn't work. But let's suppose that they stand their ground on the beach like they did in the return. It would still play out the way it did, only Jasper wouldn't be talking to Lapis and later imprisoning her. For that matter, she wouldn't have been interrogated by Peridot on the way to Earth. Without Lapis, Jasper would have no one to fuse with, so there would be no Malachite, and thus she would be defeated simply because she was weakened from her rematch with Garnet, and since Amethyst, Pearl, Steven, and Lion are present, you get the idea. But once again, without Lapis freed in this alternate scenario, Peridot would not have known that Steven could heal gems because Lapis was her case in point, presumably from her interrogation on the trip to Earth.
I know you fixed Lazuli's gem. Whatever you did, you've got to do it to the Homeworld Warp! Or else!
So in this alternate scenario, Peridot would still be playing a losing game of cat and mouse. Only in this scenario, she has no reason to abduct Steven, and without Jasper on the loose, the crystal gems are free to focus their efforts entirely on catching Peridot. So more than likely they would have bubbled her like they did Jasper. But then that begs the question, well, what about the cluster crisis? Well, let's assume that she says the same words that prompt Steven to release her like in Catch and Release, and does the same efforts he does to gradually turn Peridot from enemy to friend. Having said that, they would have gotten to work on the gem drill much sooner than otherwise. And since Malachite's not on the lam, the crystal gems have no reason to warp to Mask Island to form Alexandrite in that awesome fight. With them working on the drill ahead of schedule, they would have dealt with it probably in the same way Steven does in Gem Drill, only there would be less tension since this would have been before the early signs started showing. The cluster crisis would have been averted before Steven's 14th birthday, which would have given Peridot a good reason to properly meet and interact with Connie, Greg, and Lion, since obviously there'd be no reason to work on the Gem Drill anymore by then. Without Lapis, Peridot would probably be a little lonely having the barn all to herself, and wouldn't be able to participate in the episode Hit the Diamond.
This plan sucks.
Actually, now that I think about it, without Lapis, Hit the Diamond would not have been possible because she's the one that slaps the Ruby spaceship into the ground, kicking off that episode. So Peridot probably would have been interrogated by the Rubies, if not captured for questioning, because by that time, I doubt she would betray the crystal gems and tell them that Jasper is bubbled by them. She probably wouldn't have known that in this scenario, although she would have spent more time with them and the topic of Jasper probably would have come up by then. Speaking of which, as a result of Jasper being captured earlier, she would not have tried collecting gem monsters, and Steven and Amethyst would not have discovered their fusion of smoky quartz, at least not in the way they did, which was by happy accident. Another awesome fight would not have happened. Without Lapis being free, there would have been no reason for Greg to rent and later buy an expensive boat in the episode Alone at Sea. Without Lapis, she and Peridot would no longer occupy the barn, so there would be no reason for Steven to create Pumpkin, and the episode Gem Harvest would have unfolded probably a lot differently than it did when Greg's cousin Andy DeMeo returned to the family barn. Lapis wouldn't have been able to fly Steven over to Andy's plane to talk some sense into him, and the seeds of family reconciliation wouldn't have been sown. Therefore, Steven would not have had the means to travel to Korea to look for Pink Diamond's palanquin. Although, to be fair, there was always the alternate routes of, warp pads or traveling via 737, but still. Without Lapis, and by extension without Peridot, and also Pumpkin, there would be no Crystal Temps. It would just be Connie and Lion trying to fill in during the Rescue Greg arc. So that's pretty much it. As of this video, Season 5 has only shown its first 4 episodes, so it still remains to be seen as to what Lapis will do, or lack thereof in this scenario, in which case I may do a follow-up to this scenario. My heart tells me that Lapis still has some part to play, yet for good or ill. The pity of Steven with Lapis, just like the pity of Bilbo with Gollum, may rule the fate of many. Lapis is a popular and sympathetic character, and I'm glad she was freed when she was, because that opened up a lot of storytelling possibilities, and she became one of the most developed characters in the show. If she wasn't free to begin with, I couldn't play this mini AMV.
Don't judge a thing till you know what's inside it. Don't push me, I'll fight it. Never gonna give it, never gonna give it up, no. If you can't catch a wave, then you're never gonna ride it. You can't come uninvited. Never gonna give it, never gonna give it up, no. You can't take me, I'm free.
So what do you guys think would happen in this scenario? Let me know in the comments of this video. If you have any ideas for future what if scenarios, feel free to share them in the comments too. This is KTChamberlain. Thank you for watching.